all done with the end of the year content, so now I'm just killing time until new music comes out. So I'll just do things and have fun with all my friends on the internet because I love you all. Ba 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 da ba da 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 da. Da 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 da. This is my new song. Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. More specifically, a brand new vinyl update video. It's that magical time of each 3-month period in which I show off what cool vinyl records I have jammed and purchased and added to my massive collection. Normally, I would wait until a little bit further in the month to do this. Like, I would wait till maybe, like, the end of December or maybe just before Christmas. But, like, you know, I'm broke, to be blunt, so I really don't think I'm gonna be buying much more vinyl the next few weeks. Whatever money I have will be put towards groceries, duh, because I like to eat and live. Rent, you know, also because living, pretty great. And also Christmas shit, because apparently Christmas is important. I personally disagree, but in my family, I am in the minority, so whatevs. I'm just gonna have to fucking suck it up, I guess. I'm just gonna have to Grinch it alone. But hey, whatevs, you're not here to listen to me talk about any of that. You're here for vinyl. So let's start talking about vinyl, and let's start with 2 albums from Swedish death metal supergroup Bloodbath, their debut album Resurrection Through Carnage, and their sophomore studio album Nightmares Made Flesh. I was a big fan of Bloodbath's most recent studio album, Survival of the Sickest. I thought it was a grimy, gnarly, grisly piece of old-school American and Swedish death metal worship. But with all due respect to that record, these two, this is where it's at. I mean, these are considered classics of death metal. They're that good. And they're relatively recent, all things considered. I mean, they're not, because they're 20 years old. But they're not from the 80s or 90s, which is when a majority of so-called death metal classics were released. But these albums are just so good that we just associate it with that era of death metal. Like, they're just that fucking fantastic. I mean, to this day, this album just sounds like some really gnarly old-school Swedish death metal demo that was, like, torn to fucking pieces in a paper shredder, but then re-pieced together with the most meticulous attention to detail imaginable. I mean, this is just an expertly crafted album, with Michael Ackerfeld of Opeth fame on lead vocals, one of 2 albums that he would record with the Bloodbath crew. Pressed on silver vinyl, gray vinyl, nice. Nightmares Made Flesh as well, pressed on orange vinyl. This would be the band's only album with Peter Totgren on lead vocals. Here we go. Kaboom jams. Great record as well. Resurrection Through Carnage is my personal jam. That's where I go to of these 2. But this is a great record as well. I'm honestly kind of amazed I was able to find these. Like, this is not something I've ever seen in a record shop ever. I guess it was recently reissued because I found it at Cops. So thank you, Cops Records, for once again being the place for me to go when there's a record that's like... It's like, if there's a record that I want in my collection and I don't know where to get it online, I go to Cops. Like, they're so good for that shit. Next up, we have Glow On from Turnstile. Y'all know I'm a big fan of this record. It was one of my favorite non-metal records of 2021, and I'm super elated to see this thing finally on vinyl, like, over a year later. Also super elated to see Turnstile getting some Grammy attention this year. Nominated for, like, Best Rock Song, Best Rock Performance, Best Metal Performance, too, which I don't really see this as being metal. Time and Space, I could picture, you know, that argument. I remember even arguing in a review of that album that it had, like, a very, like, 80s crossover underbelly to it. Like, I remember saying if Jane's Addiction tried to make an 80s crossover thrash record, it would have sounded like Time and Space. Whatever. Turnstile, not metal, but I am happy to see them getting a lot of attention. I'm hoping that Turnstile win big at the Grammys this year, because they're easily the most interesting rock band that's even mentioned at the Grammys this year. Pressed on standard black, no special variant needed. It's just a fantastic record, one of the best, and one of the most innovative, like, hardcore alternative records I think I've heard in a long, long, long time. Next up, we have Le Voyage de l'Âme. I don't know. I don't speak fucking French. It's the third studio album from Alcest. It's great. It combines a lot of elements that Alcest had been doing so well up to this point in their career into one cohesive, dreamy, emotional slab of, like, black gaze magic. In the past, I have said that Écaille de Lune is one of my all-time favorite black metal albums, and that Alcest in general is one of my all-time favorite black metal bands. I love this record just as much in some ways as Écaille de Lune. I think this is a more expansive and a more spiritual record. I overall prefer Écaille de Lune. I just prefer, like, the heart and the soul and the vibe of that more so to this, but this is just as interesting, just as urgent, just as provocative and impactful. Standard black vinyl here, no special variant, but that's fine. No special variant is required. It's a great album. That is what matters. I've seen some other Alcest stuff at the aforementioned Cops Records, so I think eventually I'm just going to break down and end up with the entire Alcest discography on vinyl. Yeah. I mean, eating is important. You know, paying rent, cell phone bills, taxes, shit like that. But also having more Alcest stuff on vinyl. I think you understand the situation I'm in, the bind that I'm in. Next up, we have The Way of All Flesh, the fourth studio album from French progressive death metal, groove metal crew Gojira, probably one of the biggest names in metal nowadays, thanks to records like this, but also especially thanks to more recent albums like Magma, Fortitude, and such. It's hard to pick a favorite Gojira record, especially from these early years, because they're all so fucking good. But if this isn't at the very top, it's probably damn near close. Everything that this album deals with still feels very important. It still feels very powerful. The music is just incredible. Like, tons of, like, crippling, weird grooves and time signatures and lots of fantastic guitar work and these really heartfelt screams. The production is amazing. It's surprisingly quite lush and evocative despite being so objectively, sonically brutal and punishing at times. It's just an incredible fucking record. It's Gojira doing what Gojira do best, what has defined them. And I love it. It's awesome. Another record I can thank Cops Records for. This was also the most expensive of all the records we're talking about. More expensive than it probably should have been. I'm going to have to talk to Cops in the future about that. But what else? It's a fantastic album. It was worth it. And also not the most I've ever spent on a single vinyl record. So we're still okay, all things concerned. Standard black vinyl. No special variant needed, though, because it's just great. It's Gojira! What more do you need to know? Next up, we have Court in the Act, the debut studio album from English heavy metal, speed metal, Nawabum underdogs Satan. This album actually turns 40 years old next year, which is probably part of why this was reissued by Roadrunner Records. It's a fantastic record. I'm honestly kind of amazed how well this holds up 40 years later. Like, this sounds amazing. It's rabid and ferocious and, you know, definitely a lot more brutal than a lot of, like, heavy metal and speed metal being released at that time. For those of you completely unaware of this band, which is possible because they're not the biggest name ever, especially not out of the Nawabum movement, I would say that they're like a cross between, like, what Angel Witch were doing at that time and what Venom were doing at that time, you know? Like, they're dirty, and they're kind of scuzzy and grimy, and they have this raw, evil sound, but there's also a lot of great songwriting, a lot of great musicianship, a lot of strong hooks and melodies, some great guitar noodling. Very underrated album from a very underrated band, pressed on gold vinyl, which means it looks as good as it sounds. Holy shit. I hope I look this good when I'm 40 years old. I already know I won't, but I can dream, can't I? Next up, something a little bit more recent, the self-titled album from Artificial Brain, technical avant-garde death metal crew. This is one of my favorite metal albums of 2022, just in case you didn't know, just in case you didn't see that video. And the reason why is because it hits, because it slaps, because it goes hard. A lot of weird, obtuse arrangements and, like, just mind-boggling musicianship. I love the raw, cavernous production. I love the influences from, like, brutal death metal. I love, like, the horns and synthesizers that can be heard across the album, giving this a much more cinematic kind of vibe and feel. These guys have consistently been one of the most interesting and one of the most brutal kind of tech death, modern death metal bands out there in the past few years or so, and this record pretty much continues to show why. Like, anybody questioning why should listen to this record. And it is pressed on a transparent vinyl, so I can see right through it. I can see you right through it. And you can see me right through it. Hello! How are you? Still unclear as to what Artificial Brain plans to do next, because they have not announced or said anything, but I'm hoping, even though Will Smith is leaving the band, and even though this album kind of finishes a trilogy of albums, that they continue and do all kinds of gnarly, cool, and badass stuff, because that would be great. That would be wild and awesome. Speaking of great, wild, and awesome, an album that I've wanted in my collection for a very, very, very long time. It was finally reissued this year. We Are the Romans from Botch, a fucking icon of 90s metalcore and mathcore. Holy shit. What a fantastic fucking record. I was out of town and unfortunately unable to get to a computer when this reissue was announced, when it was, you know, available for pre-order. When I finally got home, when I finally had access to a computer, you know, it was pretty much sold out. So I kind of gave up hope on having this thing on vinyl without spending an absurd amount of money on Discogs. But, you know, the fine folks at Sonic Boom rang me up. They said, hey, look, we have this thing. We know that you want it because you've asked us about this before. And now I have it, and now it's mine, and I'm very happy. At this point, there's only like 1 or 2 albums that I need to add to my collection. You know what I mean? Like a couple of albums that make up a wish list, if you will, of records that I need to have. One of those being Jane Doe from Converge. Here's hoping one day they reissue that motherfucker. But at least I got We Are the Romans. At least I got We Are the Romans, which remains every bit as exciting and as brutal now as it was in 1999, as it was, you know, a few years back when I was starting to really learn that, hey, I like metalcore, and it's not just like fucking stupid-ass overproduced dribble. There's actual talent and, like, good music. This version of We Are the Romans also includes a brand new song that Botch briefly reunited to create and record together, 122, taking up side D. It's pretty solid. It's pretty cool. I could personally do without it, but, you know, it's cool to see that Botch is back and putting out something. I don't know how permanent, if at all, this Botch reunion is, but hey, good for them. It's objectively cool. The album itself is pressed on blue vinyl. It sounds amazing. Holy shit. Check it out if you haven't already, because I have a funny feeling that this is not something that's going to be reissued again for a very, very, very long time. I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but I don't think I am. I'm usually not. So, yeah, get on that. Next up, we have a slew of classic thrash metal releases from a slew of classic thrash metal crews and such, the first of which is the Formation of Damnation from Testament, which is pretty much the oldest Testament album that you can get on vinyl at this point. I have looked for so long to get the New Order and Practice What You Preach on vinyl. I can't fucking find it anywhere. Literally, the oldest record I've been able to find is this, which sucks. But hey, at least this is good. Like, this is actually a great record. An argument can be made that it's one of Testament's best, one of their most urgent, one of the most powerful. The vinyl, too, looks like a straight-up piece of fucking candy. Like, straight up. Pressed on white with, like, green and blue and, like, a little bit of purple. Like, I love that. This is great. This looks like a birthday cake. I want to take a bite out of this. Also picked up Seasons in the Abyss from Slayer. Not my favorite from the classic era, but a damn good record irregardless. With damn great songs. War Ensemble, Spirit in Black, Dead Skin Mask. Lots of good shit here. Actually, this and the Testament album I picked up on my birthday this year. So this was kind of a birthday present to myself. It was fun. We went to Antler Kitchen. I got really drunk, ate a bunch of steak and duck hearts and venison tartare. And we came back to my place and we actually jammed some fucking Slayer and some fucking Testament, because why not? I had just bought them. Why not jam them? That makes sense. And that kind of does it for vinyl, but there are some other things I'd kind of like to show off to you, because why not? They're cool and good. On the shelf behind me, there are some cassette tapes. No one has noticed them, but they've been there for a while. And these cassette tapes are very cool. I got the Black Album on cassette, and Garage Days EP Revisited. Both of them, obviously, from classic, legendary American thrash metal titans, legends, icons, Metallica, arguably the definitive metal band. I picked these up in Kensington Market, ironically at a Kensington Jazz Festival. Obviously, these are not jazz. I actually picked these up pretty much right before I picked up the Bloodbath records. It might have even been the same fucking day. When I saw these, especially the Garage Days EP, I just went like full-blown autism for a moment and was like, whoa, that's cool! And my clumsy autistic ass ended up dropping one of them, and the case fucking shattered, and the guy was like, dude, it's fine, whatever. It's funny. It was great. Happy to have these. Now I just need a cassette player. There's not a huge cassette scene here in Toronto. Not that I'm aware of, at least, so don't have a cassette player. But I'm happy to have them. I just thought it would be a cool thing to show off. Why not? It's Metallica. Why would I not show off cool Metallica stuff? They're a great fucking band. Booyah! Okay, now that officially does it. Vinyl update, December 2022. Hell yes. Those are all the albums I've picked up in the last 2.5-ish months or so. What about you? It's your turn now. Tell me about all the cool, gnarly albums that you have added to your collection. Tell me about the vinyl, the cassette tapes while we're at it. Tell me what CDs you bought recently. I don't listen to CDs because I don't care about CDs. Vinyl's cooler, but fuck it. Why not? Let's talk about music. Let's have fun. Let's do it. And then once you've done that, boom, check out this video. And then, you know, for shits and giggles, boom, check out this video. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, you can press this video. Isn't that great? And as always, ladies and gentlemen, after all of that, have yourself a fantastic fucking day. Cheers.